That's right.
That's right.
It's rolling?
It's rolling, yeah.
Sure, my name is Rodney Hyde. I'm the MP for Epsom, which is a district around here of about 40,000 people, in Auckland, which is the commercial centre of New Zealand. I'm also the leader of the ACT Party, which now sadly just has 2 representatives out of 121. And we're a free market, free enterprise political party, and we've been in Parliament since we introduced in New Zealand a proportional representation system called MMP. And we've had up to 9 MPs, and sadly it's just 2 now.
Okay. So, could you please briefly explain how ACT differs from other conservative parties in New Zealand?
There's a major conservative party, but they're a sort of conservative do-nothing party, the National Party. They tend to be a party of government, they don't tend to be a party of ideas, and they certainly have not introduced any far-reaching free market reforms. Quite often they've done the reverse. And then of course against them we have the Labour Party, which is its origins are socialism. But funnily enough, in the 80s in New Zealand it actually led the way in deregulating the New Zealand economy, privatisation, and opening ourselves up to the free market.
How much influence would you say the parties like ACT, smaller third parties, have in MMP?
It varies. It depends, of course, whether you're propping up a government or not. Right now I've got a bill before Parliament which I've shepherded through a select committee and are hoping to pass. It'll need to be watered down somewhat, which is a shame. But that's a bill called the Regulatory Responsibility Bill, which provides a quasi-constitutional restraint on government, so that they at least have to disclose when they're pinching your property rights and some of the adverse effects their legislation is going to have. Now, if we could get that bill through, it would be quite a dramatic impact.
Okay. And would you say that it's fair to say that while you might, well, is it fair to say that your party is the furthest right economically, furthest free market economically?
No doubt that it's a furthest free market party. It's the only party in our Parliament that actually advocates the free market. I don't like the phrase "to the right," because in New Zealand that's sort of got a connotation of extremism, and it's used to dismiss people. So I tend to say, look, I'm a free market guy. Our party stands for the free market. Why wouldn't you? You know, why do you want government doing everything? So I try and keep away from being extreme or to the far right.
What about social policy?
We're a liberal party in that regard, liberal in the European sense. So we believe that what you do in your bedroom's your business. So we're fully libertarian. So quite often conservative parties think it's a good idea to have a free market, but then they want to boss you around. What you do in your own private life, we don't buy into that at all.
Okay. How would you say that that ACT compares to the Republican Party in the U.S.?
It doesn't have a moral conservative strain, so in that regard it's quite different. So in fact we struggle to understand it here in New Zealand. That strong moral conservatism that we see in American politics doesn't show its head here in New Zealand.
And do you believe that having a free market party that is more free market than national has freed national to move more to the center, or has ACT's support pressured them to adopt more free market policies?
Well, when they were in government for 3 years, when we supported them, we did get them to move on a couple of issues. For example, we have a social insurance scheme, a government insurance scheme for injury, and we got that opened up to competition and choice. Sadly, it's been reversed under a Labour government. So that was a significant achievement that wouldn't have happened without ACT support. Certainly we've put on the agenda tax cuts, and so the National Party has been advocating tax cuts. They'll only do them, I suspect, if we were there to keep the pressure on. They do tend to be a conservative party, not just in the sense of moral conservatism, but conservatism in sort of the status quo. Whereas I think the status quo sucks, and that we can do so much better. So I'm a reformer. You know, I look at government and sort of, I actually, feel like sometimes blowing the whole thing up. It's so ridiculous. So the idea of getting there and just administering that ship of state doesn't interest me. Not at all.
Do you believe the two major parties, National and Labour, change from more broad spectrum parties to narrower parties under MMP, or has there been little change?
Little change, actually. The smaller parties or the MMP parties have nipped away at them, but you haven't seen the National Party and the Labour Party have been a broad spectrum parties. What has changed, I would say, is that Labour has found itself occupying the centre ground, whereas it used to be National that occupied the centre ground, and that's been quite a phenomenon that Labour has had 3 terms in power.
Well, that's actually interesting. Do you think that the populace has moved further to the left, or does MMP have a slight have more of a bias towards the left than First Past the Post does?
I think there's a couple of things. I think the population has shifted somewhat to the left. There's a different ethnic makeup, which isn't a left-right thing, but favours Labour. And of course MMP favours Labour because it has a Maori party, an ethnic-based party, and a Green party, which isn't at all about environment, because the environment is the free market and private property rights, but this is sort of like a red-green party, and so it's got more parties to draw on for support, which again helps in an MMP setting.
And how would you compare popular skepticism in the political process in the 1980s under First Past the Post compared to today under MMP?
I'm not sure what you mean, popular skepticism.
I've been reading a lot of academic material that basically the 1980s, the populace was very skeptical. There were a lot of people switching votes between National and Labour.
It was a revolution, and so it's hard to imagine. In the 1980s, it was a revolution in every sense. So a Labour government swept to power. It had a reforming finance minister who decided to deregulate the economy because every other socialist intervention had been tried. In fact, they joked that the Labour Party, every policy it came up with for more socialism, National had already done. So the only thing left was to deregulate the economy and drop taxes. And Roger Douglas set about doing that at a great pace, and it shook up the New Zealand economy, social society, but also politics. So people swapped their votes. People that had traditionally voted National because they believed in the free market found themselves voting Labour. And it was a revolution, and it still hasn't quite settled down. And it's made New Zealanders, while they now clearly see the benefits of reform, the change was traumatic for them and upsetting for them, and now they like to vote for things staying the way they are.
You believe that MMP has made politicians more accountable to?
No, quite the reverse.
Really?
Yes, MMP is a system that diminishes accountability because people are chosen off a list. Only half the representatives are from a seat, from a district, and so they come off a list which concentrates power into the hands of the party machinery. And also governments get elected without a clear program, and so you have an election and then the government will sort of negotiate with its coalition partners about what it may or may not do, rather than putting up a program and having that voted on. You also have an additional failure of proportional representation systems whereby the voting public can't just turf a government out like you get with First Past the Post, because the government can cobble together further coalitions to maintain itself in power. So I believe it diminishes accountability rather than increases it. What it does give you is a greater diversity. So you do have a free market party in Parliament. You do have, some wacky parties that can make it that wouldn't otherwise make it. And it does make for a gayer, sort of more diverse, more fun Parliament, but certainly less accountability.
When people vote in MMP, are they typically voting for the people in the party or the policies of the party? In other words, are they voting for personalities or ideas?
It would appear that they're voting very much for the personality of the leader with their party vote. So New Zealand politics has become very presidential in that respect. So the leader drives the campaign for the party votes, and a lot of that is about policies, and of course You know, if you're a libertarian, then you're big on ideas, and it always is disappointing to us. Our elections are fought and won, because even to the extent that they're arguing over an idea, it's quite a small one.
And do you think there's more political participation in New Zealand under MMP than first past the post?
No, there was a great deal of interest when we changed the system, because people, you know, how ironically they come up with new fads and fashions to make politicians better, brighter, more accountable, stronger, nicer, consult more, and they came along with MMP and they thought, oh, you know, this will work and politics will be good now. And of course, within a quick period of time, the population realised that it's just the same old politicians being politicians, and it's probably fueled disillusionment actually, and no one sees what, you know, is the true answer. Like, why have it? You know, why not just make your own way?
And you think MMP has affected the lives of New Zealanders who don't typically follow politics and current events?
Not especially, other than the fact that we've had some sort of more entertaining personalities in our parliament that have done some silly things that have captured the public's imagination. So, you know, we have had some shocking things, because people coming off the list have been quite remarkable sometimes.
Okay. How are we on time?
We've got 5 more minutes.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions I had.
And I do apologise for the mix-up of the time.
Oh, we apologise as well. I don't know where it came in, but... Yeah.
So you're travelling the countryside doing this?
Pretty much, yeah.
Sounded great.
Thank you, yeah. Well, somebody's got to be Don Quixote. And
yes.
So, tilting at windmills and everything, and I don't know if this will catch on. Hopefully it will.
Well, why don't you come through and meet the team, and then I'll head away to do my message.
Oh, would it be alright if we videotape them as well?
Sure, I'll just check with them.
Okay. Yes,
So you need to tell me your names again.
Oh,
Helen?
Brian Boyko.
Right,
Yes.
right. Bringing in the pre-libertarians, do you mind if you will? These are hardcore, these are the real thing.
Get Ron Paul 2008.
When you're ready?
Yeah. Oh, we just noticed the Ron Paul button up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a Ron Paul supporter myself, but I, if he was voted in, I'd be able to say I didn't vote for him, but I hope he really does a good job, and I think he'll do the best he can.
And that's my electorate there. This is Priscilla Tate, who looks after me.
Aye.
Hello,
Glad you
Mr.
managed to
Shake.
get here.
Yep. Sorry for the mix-up, you know. And but
This
thanks.
is a movie that they've made about a case I was involved in.
Oh yeah,
called We're Here to Help.
I've been reading about that on your blog.
Yeah.
Haven't had a chance to see it yet.
Yeah, no, well, you got to go and see it. It's my book, My Year Living Dangerously. And that's me on the Dancing with the Stars.
Oh yeah, Helen was mentioning that. Unfortunately I didn't see you, but.
No,
yeah.
and
Brotown. You were in Brotown?
yeah, they sort of do a series where the Brotown kids come to Wellington. It's actually very, very funny show.
They had to
There's
redraw
me
them though.
racing my car. Come through.
They had to go from fat Rodney to thin Rodney. See, they had to slim him down.
Yeah. Big old bag. This is Stewie Wilson. G'day.
Hi, Stewie.
Who's a hardcore libertarian. And this is-
Anarcho-capitalist.
Pardon?
Anarcho-capitalist.
Yeah. Anarcho-capitalist. Yeah, we think libertarians, but and this is Willie Seabrook, who's a anarcho-capitalist and IT guy, and they help us run the party.
Cool.
And Willie Seabrook's a bit of a hero of ours because he's got a really gorgeous girlfriend who loves Ayn Rand. And like, how often does that happen in your life?
Twice.
Twice!
You heard, you heard of those Christian t-shirts, the what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Check this out. Let's see that.
What would Dagny
Do.
do? Who's Dagny?
Dagny, Taggart.
Oh, from the novel.
Yeah.
Sorry. I've only read Anthem. I haven't read Fountainhead
You
yet.
haven't listened to me. Don't count it. So that's the team. Now I've got to run, but feel free to stay and explain to these guys what you're doing.
Oh,
I'd love to hear.
All right.
Okay, Bright. Nice to meet you. Take care, and onwards for freedom.
All right. Thanks.
Take care.